to Voices of Black Folk. My name is Will Anyu, and I'm your host.
And we want to come today to talk about issues of being a Black person within the healthcare field, especially at a pivotal time like this during COVID-19. So I want to first start off by allowing my guests to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about who they are and why they chose to enter their specific field.
Hey everybody, my name is Dr. Simon Ndeli. I was born and raised in Minnesota, and that's actually where I'm doing my current training. So I'm actually a pediatric resident here at the University of Minnesota's pediatric residency program. I'm just entering into my third year, and which is my last year, and hoping to do pediatric ICU work as a fellowship.
So I'm Dr. Mrs. Pauline Foy. I have a doctorate in nursing practice. I've been doing this for about 16 years, and I have predominantly done outpatient healthcare. I've never been a hospitalist, but overall, my background is adult gerontology. Done a lot of family medicine. My master's is in family nurse practice.
How you doing? Pleasure. Thank you guys for having me. I'm Dr. Jermaine Akabana. I just graduated residency, actually. I just finished my internal medicine residency, so my specialty is internal medicine. For those who don't know, internal medicine, it's a specialty that focuses on prevention, diagnosis, and treatment of chronic illnesses. So if somebody has heart disease, hypertension, diabetes, thyroid disease, or lung diseases, so I generally will see those patients.
Yeah, it's been a blessing to be able to make it to this moment, this time in my life. And although it's stressful and we have so many other different life factors going on, I'm very blessed and appreciated and humbled to actually be doing this job. And I know it's the right field for me. So, but I know we'll get a lot more.
I went into healthcare because I spent most of my time as a child in a hospital being sick. And I think I got really comfortable with walking around with the nurses and the doctors and doing what they did. And I think a bunch of people in my neighborhood, born and raised Douala, Cameroon, started calling me Little Doctor by the time I was 13 when I started treating malaria, really.
In the clinic.
And
I was born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The reason I chose to go into medicine, my grandfather was a radiologist. He used to take me to the hospital when I was like 4 years old. I used to be around him in his office there and everything. So that's caused my exposure to that. And I really liked it. Quite a number of people in my family in the medical field, and it was always very intriguing and very interesting to me. So that's the path I chose.
Fantastic. Well, thank you all so much. And you you all are speaking, this constant thought keeps going through my mind, right? Within the Black community, we don't see too many of us, right? And so if you all could just share a little bit about what does it mean to be a Black person of African descent within a field that oftentimes you don't see too many people that look like you.
I'll start with an anecdote. My very first job straight out of NP school was in a clinic in a rural part of one of the states here in the Southeast. And I remember a lady, you look at the computer and they say there's a patient in an exam room. So I go into the room, it said headache. So I'm like, hey, Ms. Jones, my name is so-and-so, and I'm here. And she looks at me, she goes, by God, I never knew I would see the day. A Black doctor. That's all I needed. Thank you. And I'm like, okay, what's coming up? What's next? How long's the headache been going on? She said, no, they just told me Miss Gina don't hire a Black girl. And I just could not believe it. I got to go back to the church and tell them it's true. So it was a proud moment, but it also, I think, was kind of sad because I realized that I was the exception to the expectation, for a girl or a boy that looked like me. but it's also been something that has kept me very humble, but that has kept my reaction to situations very scripted. You know, I try to, like, I learned something recently. I try to respond. So where everybody's expecting me to get really angry and everything, I have to remember that I'm standing on the shoulders of people like Miss Jones. And I can't come up here and act the fool or, you know, give everybody else what they think I'm going to bring to the table. So I have to always make sure that I have that face that continues to keep the road open for other people like me to come up.
And Jermaine, I want to pose that next question to you. So can you tell us a little bit about your experiences thus far? I know you say you just finished residency, but what is your overall experience being a Black man with that doctor title in front of your name?
I mean, I think it's huge. Like she said, you don't really see a lot of black people in this profession, to be honest with you. Let's say just to give a little bit of insight. So the residency program that I'm in, the internal medicine program, we had 20 residents per class. It's 3 different classes. So the first years, second years, and third years. So my class, when I was a first year, it's me and another Black guy, and we had 1 mixed girl. But that's out of 20 residents, and then all 3 classes, that's 60 total. It was only 3 of us. Even when you start adding some of the classes up, out of like 132 residents, I think there's only been maybe like 7 or 8 Black people or something. So it's such a small number. It's really huge to see, to be in this position, because it helps people see that you know, you can achieve this. You don't really, a lot of young people don't really see, you know, they don't really see people who look like them in these positions. So I've always thought that was a really big deal, and I always try to mentor the young ones when I can. I try to promote everybody to more so focus on your education and your how you go about studying things, and it's not really necessarily your appearance. I used to have really long braids years back. It's just fashion. It's what I like to do. It didn't mean I did any worse in school than the next guy. And even now, my hair is, I mean, it's the way it is. It's really just long and curly. But you know, it's funny because when I'm walking down the hospital and something, you know, some people who see it, I'm like one of the few Black doctors at the hospital. So some of the people who see them, they'll be like, "Dr. Cabina, your hair is very interesting. I like that." You know, they just, I mean, I don't know. I just try to let people know, like, you can kind of express yourself and, you know, still be yourself, do the things you like, and just focus and you know, still make it.
And Simon, I want to pose the question a little bit different to you. So I want to hear about your experience, but there's this common term that also keeps coming out that a lot of people view might not be familiar with: residency. So can you talk a little bit about your experience being a Black doctor? What does residency mean, and how does that get you ultimately to where you want to be in regards to your career?
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of what residency is, well, we all go through undergrad, and we do our best to prepare to, you know, take our introductory testing, such as the MCAT, in order to get into medical school. Medical school is generally 4 years long. After that, you have some classwork within medical school, and then you also have some rotations where you actually kind of get some experience within clinical work. It gives you an opportunity to learn the different sides of medicine, the totality of what medicine is, and maybe what area fits you the best. Once you kind of figure that out, you apply for what's called residency, and that's specific specialized training within an area of medicine. So medical school, when we're done, when we graduate, that's when we get our MD. So, you know, when I became a doctor, I can tout it and all this type of stuff and be proud, all those types of things, but it's not the end of the journey by any means to get to where you want to go. It just lets you know that you have a base level training to be able to take that next step. Being a Black man in the field is also sometimes difficult, in the sense that because, you know, with all of that stress and all those things that you go through to get here, you also recognize, as we've stated, there's not that many people that look like us. And so a lot of us, and more probably than not, feel like we have to represent and be an example. And that doesn't leave us a lot of room for error. And sometimes that's difficult to deal with, you know, to be a human being, to, you know, be able to make mistakes, or to be able to just, you know, kind of focus on yourself for certain, in certain ways. It's difficult to be able to do that. And especially as we're in this particular climate, and with some of the things that are happening out in the world, we don't have the luxury to just, you know, pass on by and then just let everything, you know, just try to focus on our own thing. Because even if we wanted to do that, other people remind us who we are, that we're Black, and that we are few in number that are here. And so sometimes it's difficult trying to balance that while, you know, we are in a very stressful type of environment, although it's something that can be very rewarding. And so that's something that I recognize on a day-to-day, with being a Black male that's here, and especially going to a program similar to Jermaine, where, you know, there's not that many Black people in general within the program. Similar, we have like around 26 residents a year, and then 10 other med peds who we work with within the pediatric realm. And there's about 4 of us, I think, within the 36 of us. And then, like, I know I've talked to my program director multiple times when I was interested, and she was like, yeah. And that's one thing I actually really appreciated about her. She was like, yeah, our enrollment of Black men sucks, specifically Black men. Like, it's terrible. We get about 1 or 2 every other year. And so those are things that we literally face and think about day to day, that some of our colleagues don't necessarily have to worry about, think about, or experience. And so those different types of things makes our experiences just a little bit more difficult in certain ways.
And so thank you all for that. That was amazing. And so we are currently living through what some would call, I mean, a tragedy, to say the least. Like, we're living through one of the worst pandemics this world has ever faced. The health crisis, nobody knows what's going on. All these companies are rushing to try to create vaccines. We have leadership that has no clue what's going on, nor do they even care what's going on. And so as the individuals on the front line, right? And so, like, this new term has emerged ever since coronavirus became a thing. First responders and people on the front line. So can you talk a little bit about what life has been like to you since early March, really, since this really hit us? And so, Jermaine, I want to start with you, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, it's been crazy. I mean, you have a certain population of people who they think like the whole coronavirus thing is like a hoax. They don't really believe in it. We see it firsthand. You know, it's crazy. It's a lot. Even now, there's a second wave coming through right now. I'm in Florida. That's where I was doing my residency. It was in Tampa, Florida. So Florida right now has, man, every day is having lots of cases popping up. Florida, Texas, and Arizona. Those are currently the hotspots. So I mean, when this started in March, people weren't really too sure what was going on, but the CDC had recommended, you know, kind of like eight weeks or so of like social distancing. Man, a lot of things changed at the hospital. We used to have conferences because I mean, it's on the job training. That's what residency is like. Like that, it's on job training, but you're still learning. So I mean, we have conferences where we learn. Every morning at 8, we have a conference that's about an hour long, and every day at noon we have another conference that's about an hour long. Those are what we call our didactics. That's where we get some learning in. So those generally we used to gather in a big conference room, and you would learn. But we've been doing a lot of Zoom lately. There's been a lot of online things. There's a lot of different precautions now at the hospital. Initially, when this started, somebody who you suspect might have COVID-19 infection, the COVID infection, we would classify them as PUIs, people under suspicion. So those people, initially when they first started, residents weren't allowed to see those. At least the junior residents weren't. So the senior residents, and changed it where residents are seeing these guys, and it's initially when this started, there was lack of PPE. That's the protective equipment that you need to be able to safely see these people and not get infected yourself. That we were lacking, enough of those, and it's just been hectic. I do live with my wife, and I do have small children, and my mother-in-law is here with us as well. So it makes it very difficult. I mean, when I come home, sometimes it's almost like at the door, you're almost just stripping right there at the door, getting all your clothes off because you don't want to bring that into the home, and it's a must to shower, and then it's just in the back of your mind. Like I taken care of this patient the other day at the hospital. He was negative. Everything was fine. I discharged him, and a couple of days later, he went to a different hospital and tested positive. So I mean, those things, they, you lose a little bit of sleep with that. You don't want to, not necessarily concerned for myself, but you just don't want to, get other people infected. So it's a really big deal. Unfortunately, still some people aren't really taking it so serious. Here in Florida, they just passed a rule or something. I don't think they just made it where the bars can no longer serve alcohol. I don't know why they don't just close the bars down, but bars can no longer serve alcohol right now.
So thank you for that. And Dr. Foy, you and I have had countless conversations about just what life has looked like in your world since this pandemic started. So can you shed some light on that?
Yeah, just like Dr. Kovina, it's been from the home front having to wonder, getting home, and actually for me it starts as soon as I walk out of the building. I do know my patients are positive. Where I work, we had about I haven't crunched the exact math, but I want to say between 70 and 80% positivity rate. We did lose at least 20 of our residents to it, at least. And we are now officially actually a COVID positive place. So we are kind of the step down for the hospital for that adult gerontology position. It's I think the way I approached it in March was I realized that there's kind of two different personalities. There's the mom, the wife in me, that wanted to protect my kids and protect my family, but there was also then the nurse in me that wants to run towards a fire when it comes up. It's, when it first started, because I have to go to two different facilities, they said, well, we're going to handle one facility, remotely and handle the other in person, to kind of contain the spread in case one of our facilities get attacked. Well, of course, one of our facilities did get attacked. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night, looking at the medical records going, okay, this person looks like it's happening. This looks like it's happening. And of course, we didn't have PPE. And even by the time I could go back into the facility, we did have PPE now, but now we were short staffed because a lot of our staff in the beginning had contracted, the illness, and then of course the fear and people not wanting to come to work, and then deal with, loved ones worried about their loved ones that are in my care, and so having to, kind of play family counselor and get on the phone just to kind of reassure, saying, hey, okay, we don't really know everything, but we're doing as much as we can, trying to keep a connection between our residents and their family members, their, video calls, and just that challenge every day. Even now, I mean, I remember I have a young man that likes to give a handshake, and I had done a good job of not giving this young man a handshake until this one day when I had just taken off a glove, and he just said, thank you so much, doctor. He shook my hand. And the first thing that flashed in front of me was both my kids. I think if I've learned anything, is that we're really all really, really equal. We're all created the same. I think this virus came in, yes, it's attacked our communities disproportionately, but when it does attack us, when it does attack a human body, it's almost like it takes us right back to ground zero. And whether we want to agree or not, we are interdependent.
Yeah.
You know, it's not I think I feel the need to say this for whoever's going to watch this. The virus is not political. The virus is not black, white, blue, yellow, gay, straight. The virus is the enemy. We have, to some extent, a way to curb its uprise. And we have to make the choice whether or not our lives, you know, all of our lives, but yes, Black lives, all our lives matter. And the way to do that, definitely put on a mask, hand sanitizers, or hand hygiene as much as possible. But if we think about it, if we just think about it simply, to me, what it taught me or what it's teaching me is that if I bring it home asymptomatically and give it to my kid, who takes it back to the teacher at school, who maybe is only 27 years old, that is diabetic and has high blood pressure, then I brought it to them, you know, and they'll take it back to the community again. So somehow we all are just related. It's like we're all in this big circle dance and we're just going around, and, you know, it's our call whether to face it or whether to continue living in denial.
Sure. And so, Simon, let me pose this question a little bit different to you. As we've seen, this virus has disproportionately affected communities of color, right? And so I don't know if that specifically happened in the hospital that you work in or in the area that you work in, but some things that the rest of our parents have hit on is the fact that in addition to dealing with a pandemic, we're also dealing with one of the worst racial crises that we've ever seen in this nation. And you are initially in ground zero, where George Floyd was murdered and taken from us. And so can you talk a little bit about that and how the virus is disproportionately affecting our communities, but also how the racial tension might be affecting your day-to-day?
Thank you. From my perspective, it's a little bit different. And it's not as easy for me to speak on it in terms of like the racial disparities in regards to the virus, because I deal with kids. And so there's a disparity in terms of age, in terms of who really gets sick from the virus.
Cool.
So in terms of my particular population, which I see and I work with a lot, the severity of the disease is a little bit different. What I've seen in terms of pediatrics, though, is that initially a lot of kids who were infected didn't end up in the hospital, didn't end up in the inpatient realm or in the ICU. That a lot of those kids were generally found in clinic or something of that sort. And for the most part, we're doing okay. Even had some GI symptoms, like a stomach bug, something of that sort is kind of how it presented initially early on. But as with a lot of things in medicine, things haven't evolved. A lot of more kids have gotten sick right now. I've seen a lot more cases. I've had to deal with a lot more cases. And right now I'm in an ICU rotation at the university main site. And so there's a lot more kids coming in. A lot more kids are having this this response that it's not even like in the infected period, but it's like this post-infectious inflammatory response in children. It's called MISCI. It's multisystem inflammatory syndrome in kids. And that's actually what we're seeing, where a lot of their inflammatory markers are up. They're getting fevers for days. They're feeling so lethargic, all these things going on. And then they come in and then they get antibody tests and they become positive for that. And some of those kids had to come into the ICU for a lot closer monitoring and care. And as Tremaine had said, you know, these are things that this is on the job training. So honestly, and I'm pretty sure for all of us, it's been chaotic.
And truly, it doesn't really help that, you know, racism reared its ugly head, and, you know, we have no choice for that when we have to fight that. So we have to fight that, and the way we fight that is by protesting. By doing that, I mean, it's a must. Obviously, as you protest, regardless of where you wear the mask and everything, you're still putting yourself, you know, at risk. But I mean, that's something we've been fighting that fight for so many years. We can't stop now, especially when it's gaining momentum. So unfortunately, it's just kind of a lot going on right now, the pandemic, and then also the bigger pandemic that's been going on for many years. So it's a lot right now.
And it's honestly been anxiety provoking. This is something that just mentioned. Like, she's freaking out because she's working and trying to treat all these people in a place where people come in who are sick, and you don't know who are sick with what yet, and you're freaking out about a handshake with somebody, which is something that you would do on a normal basis.
Yeah.
And we're doing our best to try to live through that and experience that and accept that. And but she recognized she has a life more than just medicine. She has a life more than just treating people and seeing people and having people get better. She wants to be good herself, and she wants her family to be good. But she still goes to work every day. She still does her job, and we all do. But having to do that and actually thinking, if you sit down and think about that, like, it's hard. March was hard. I was in the county hospital at that time, and so I was going between, inpatient and the ICU work, and we're in the pediatric realm of the county hospital in March, when things were just going down, and things were changing every single day. As we've all experienced, every single day. You have to wear a mask every day. Now you can only wear a mask once a day. Now you can't, you wear multiple masks. You need to keep your mask for 3 days. Now you can clean your mask, all these different types of stuff. You have to wear N95. Oh no, you can wear a regular mask. Oh nope, you have to put on a PAPR. All these different types of things. And it's constantly changing and changing and changing. And don't get me wrong, like, I'm not necessarily mad at them for doing that, because we are trying to do the best that we can. Like, we understand there's a big onslaught of stuff coming in. And we don't have time to figure out how to prepare for it. We just do, right? And that's not easy. That's not easy for a hospital system. That's not easy for the residents or the attendings or the MAs that come in. Like, how many people are supposed to see somebody? It's about the people who deliver food. It's about the janitors who clean the room. It's about the MAs who room the patients. It's about the nurses who care for the patients and clean up their crap and all this different type of stuff. These are all the people. There are so many people involved in the care of somebody. That's more than just us.
Yeah.
So for them to be in this environment, for us to not know what's going on, and it's not just PPE for us, it's for all the workers in there, for people who are registering people at the front door. All of these people are in the cascade of treating somebody and providing them the best care that they can. We have to deny parents from coming in. For a long period of time, there was only one parent. Adults, people are dying alone. They're dying with family members on FaceTime, because for a while, you can't have any visitors. Like, these are what people are going through. And obviously, I would hope people will understand this is not to terrorize people or to make people upset. Honestly, we are seeing how this spreads. And as we continue to learn, we are trying to do our best to be able to contain this. The one thing I really just want to speak on too is because as Pauline had noted, there's places where we have designated hotspots for COVID. And then those other places where there's not hotspots and that business is not really coming in, like, people are being furloughed. People are losing their jobs. People are not working this summer and are not making money in the healthcare field as well. We're talking about doctors, we're talking about MAs, we're talking about pharmacists. All these people, like, are not working and not doing this stuff. And people are even volunteering to take that time, to take that pay cut, because they understand the situation. And so sometimes it is really hard to hear people's just adamant disregard for a serious situation. I hate wearing masks. Honestly, I really, really do. Don't like it on my face. I want to take it off at every time, but I know the validity. I know the importance of it, and I respect that. And I wish people can just understand that if we want to be soldiers of the state, as so many people want to do in another country, this is one way we can fight the fight.
Thank you for that. And Jermaine, let me pose this next question to you. So Simon has talked about the severity of the issue. He's talked about like how like I'm scared, right? But I'm not a healthcare professional. You all are on a day-to-day basis, and you're in a state where the numbers are literally skyrocketing day by day. And so I guess my question revolves around how do we better educate people that this is not a joke, this is not a hoax, this is very real, and the quicker we take this seriously, the better off we're going to be in the long run. So how do we better educate people who think that this is just a political to reelect or not reelect our current sitting president?
Man, honestly, man, I wish I knew the answer to that question, because we've tried. Only thing we can do is we can keep on just trying to get the word out, of the precautions that people should take.
Mm-hmm.
And some people are going to listen naturally, and naturally, some people are going to be hard-headed and won't listen.
Mm-hmm.
To some of the stuff that Simon mentioned, I also hate wearing masks. I don't like wearing a mask, I don't like wearing all that stuff, wearing a face shield, and, my hair, it's a certain way. After I start, man, it takes a while to put all that stuff on. I take it out. By the time I do all that, man, my hair it looks crazy. And I'm a professional still trying to see patients walk around and do all that. But I mean, it's as real as it gets. It's tough on the patients. You don't want to be a patient that's dealing with this.
Mm-hmm.
We had a zero visitors policy. Now we only have visitors from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. That's the only time you can see. Imagine you're super sick. You want to see your family, you want to see your friends. They can only be there for 3 hours, between 3 and 6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy. We have some patients who they'll be like delirious. Their mentation will be super off. And like what really helps those kind of patients is like when they have like their family there to redirect them and reorient them. And those patients aren't really getting that because of the visitor policy. But that's what it is. We're just trying to keep everybody safe. The EP lab, that's where you go to get cardiology things done. If they're going to do something with your heart or try to fix it, a blockage or whatever the case may be. We just had like 9 employees in the EP lab last week test positive.
Mm.
So, I mean, like a lot of, we're seeing a lot of positive cases at the hospital. And the thing is, the hospital I'm at, this whole time, like, March, April, it wasn't even that bad. Like Southern Florida was pretty bad, but where I'm at, Central Florida, Tampa area, it wasn't too bad. Now it's pretty bad. All we can do is again just really try to educate people, tell them this is serious. I mean, I know that people around the nation are still going to clubs and. I've heard from friends that, people are still in clubs, they're in bars, they don't distance themselves, they're still hugging, doing, a lot of physical contact. I mean, it's certainly not helping. It's only going to make matters worse.
Sure.
So the biggest thing, again, is to try to flatten the curve. What we mean by that is, as less people are getting infected, that means the ICUs and the hospitals won't be getting filled. So that when people do get infected, they can come and get treated. I think I saw that the biggest hospital, I think in Texas right now, their ICU is like at capacity or something. So, I mean, a lot of people are being infected. That's all that means. So, so what happens now if more people need to go to that hospital? So you can admit them, you can have them on the floor, but they're not where they need to be. So they might not be getting the management they need to get. So people just have to be mindful and just try to listen to the professionals. I mean, everybody wants everybody to be safe. I would love for everybody to be partying and enjoying themselves. Like I just graduated several weeks ago. I didn't have a graduation. I'm perfectly fine with that. People just have to, just forego a couple things just for now. And let's try our best to get to, as close to normal as possible.
What can we do in regard to helping lower the curve? What can we do in regards to getting out more information about testing sites or more information about just how to eradicate this disease that's plagued the world?
So the first thing, I think we're having a conversation. And so This is important because then we're able to disseminate information about it. This is not information coming from the CDC. It's not coming from the White House. It's just coming from, a brother or sister that look alike, right? So I think people in that, I want to say, quote unquote, age group, much more younger folks are more likely to listen. One thing, the other thing too is, I actually super old school. I believe in leading by example, because believe it or not, everybody's watching everybody. It's just like, let me make this a little funny. If you grew up in the community and you know that there's this one person who's all about church and everything is church and God and they're all righteous, if you do see them do something even remotely wrong or even curse, you're like, really? So much for being in church. It's the same way with us. When you're out in the community and you hug somebody, it's always like, oh, wait a minute. Ain't she a doctor? Why is she hugging people? And they're telling us we can't do this. Like, I just saw her. So it's the same kind of thing, how we act. And we all posting, right? Social media and everything. Mm-hmm. I saw somebody post like this big colleague, and she had supposed to be a drive-through born house, where you welcome the baby. Well, but they're all kind of hugging and dancing in the picture. And I'm going, okay, see, I'm judging and I'm somebody that knows her and I'm in the health field. So I'm sure people who are neither of the above would judge. So I think just number one, by example, having these conversations with everybody, with your seventh grader. Hey, no, you can't, no, we're not gonna go out and hug so-and-so. My kids know, and they like super respectful, will hug every uncle and auntie, typical immigrant. Everybody you see is your uncle and auntie, but they know now somebody rings the bell, you try to hug them, they're looking at me or daddy like, we don't want to get a whooping, we're not hugging you, we're sorry, no. So whatever it's gonna take, but they're doing their own little pep, and we've had these conversations with them, even as kids, so they know. So I think it's the same thing. You had the conversation, mom and dad, you've kind of, they know that you're going to stop by and drop off stuff, but you're not going to come into the house for Mother's Day or Father's Day. So these are all some of the things that I think we should be doing. And social media is another one. But sometimes too, I like to say, there's so much wrong information propagated. If you had to counter every one of them, it's overwhelming, AKA WhatsApp. By the time it lands on your phone, it's just, I can't. But I mean, as much as we can, I think just even within our age group, just within our homies, our buddies, our girlfriends, just having this conversation in itself is, it's like seeding, you seed it into somebody's mind enough for them to want to go back and look, to find out what it is that we're really talking about.
And so in closing, first and foremost, I just want to thank you all for making time to speak with us today. But as we close, can you all just talk about the importance of, more people like us entering the healthcare field, more people like us being able to make it to that height of being Dr. Foy or Dr. Ndeli or Dr. Ekubana, and like, what does that mean? And how do we encourage more Black people to pursue careers where historically we don't see too many of us in those fields? And so, Simon, would you like us to start?
Yeah. First of all, the one last point I wanted to make is like, as our world is forever changing, medicine is forever changing and it's moving. And I think this whole COVID experience is a microcosm of what medicine is, where, as you learn more information, you gain and you get more evidence to what exactly is causing the problem, to be able to enhance the way that we treat, the way that we recommend things to be able to do for people to do. And so I understand people's frustrations that this is not something that has been always consistent, and that things continue to grow and move and experience, but I think my point is that's no different than what any other aspect of life and any other aspect of how medicine has been for us to be able to get to where we are, for us to be able to know, when immunocompromised people are around, like what different type of precautions that we take, how we got to the fact that we know how to wash our hands, that's really important for personal health and hygiene, is because as we learn more things and we grow and we get to understand how things work a little bit better, we get better defined evidence of what is probably best practice. And so I hope that as we know that as medical professionals, that people who are not medical professionals can appreciate that and experience that. And like Pauline had noted, and to your question, well, it's about example and leading by example, and that's one of the best things that we can do as medical professionals, as I can do as a Black man who got into medicine, for kids who don't know that this is an experience. Just be there and be visible, and let them know and see an example. That's something that is invaluable in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, I think it's huge. Representation is such a gigantic thing. My whole thing, man, I try my best to let people know, like, you could be yourself. You don't need to necessarily compromise who you are to reach a certain goal. Just the other day, just last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, I was hanging out with some family. My wife's side of the family, they have some little ones, and young guy, he's going to college. He's gonna be a freshman, very bright young guy. And I was just telling him about the different opportunities that he has. He has great personality, and a lot of people's perception of like a physician might just be like somebody who's very intelligent, but like maybe like bougie, stuck up, or isn't really gonna like kick it with you. And like, nah, I don't do any of that, man. We run races. I'm backflipping. I'm doing like, so he's like, wow, like I didn't know, like, you could achieve this sort of success and like still like be so down to earth to keep it real or whatever. So I mean, I don't know, man. If it's fashion you like, all that stuff. When I was growing up, it was baggy clothes and that kind of thing. So I wore a lot of baggy clothes, a lot of hip hop, a lot of Pac shirts, all that. That's just what the fashion was. I mean, you could do whatever you want fashion wise, but when you get in that classroom, you lock down. You want to do really well in school. Outside the classroom, if you want to joke around or whatever, that's fine. But you just really got to focus. And it honestly, I feel like anybody can achieve this level of success. I feel like anybody can be a doctor. It's not necessarily that you need to be smart. Yeah, you have to be capable of acquiring information, capable of learning, but like it's all about like determination and commitment and being able to really focus and stuff like that. If you're determined, you can achieve anything. I mean, I'm very religious. I believe in God. When I got to college, I got much closer to God. I'm Catholic. I used to even serve at the church. I used to do that every couple Sundays. I would do that, so that's why I'm getting to this example I'm about to give. I mean, it's kind of like when, Jesus is out there on the water, Peter's on the boat, and Jesus is telling him to come over to him. Mm-hmm. And Peter's looking at Jesus, and then like he kind of looks away and starts to, go down a little bit because he took his eyes off Jesus, So I mean, if you're a religious person, it's like, God will get you there. Keep your eyes on him. Try to do what he wants you to do. There's going to be turmoil. There's going to be wind. There's going to be a lot of different obstacles. Don't focus on that. Always don't get too high on the highs. Don't get too low when things don't go well. I've had ridiculously high highs and just horrible lows. You just can't let that bring you down. I've spoke to a lot of different people who like, they might be like, oh man, I got to take physics. There's no way, you can't pass that. Organic chemistry, nobody passed. Man, you can't let people say things like that to you to discourage you. Clearly people pass it if there's people who, people have done it and they've got to the other side. So, I mean, it's just a matter of really encouraging the youth as they come up. And I try to do that as much as I possibly can. I think the other day somebody had hit me up and was asking me different medical questions, and she's going on and on about it. And I assumed that meant she probably was interested in going to medical school. And I don't really know her that well, but just her being interested, I mean, I love that. So, I mean, I'll try to do anything I can to make that happen. Yeah. I mean, I think it's crazy that less than 5% of physicians, I think, are Black. That's insane. When what Simon was telling you, like, man, the vast majority of the African kids I grew up with, everybody is super smart. Like, every household stress education. So, like, it's not like here where you graduate high school, they think you've hit the lotto. Like, man, you got to graduate high school. You got to go to college, get that college degree. And the way the world is right now, man, a college degree is not even, sometimes you kind of even got to go higher than that. Yeah. I mean, how many, damn near every Black guy I know has tried to rap at one point in his life. I tried to do it. I was rapping a little bit when I was in high school. We've all done it, but I mean, I'm not to knock any rappers, that's cool, but like, I mean, education is something that nobody can ever take that away from you. Anywhere they put you, it doesn't matter. You can put me anywhere in the U.S., anywhere in the world. If you're educated, you're going to come out fine. You're going to make it. That's why I always try to tell, like, my daughter and stuff, like, all these different things, whether it's like the iPad, all these little games, people can take that from you. Education, that's in your head, man. No one can take that away from you. As long as you have that, you can do anything. So that's the message to really preach to the young ones. And I think as long as they see that, you know, and they see how you're living, they see like, okay, it's not just you just blowing smoke. Like, wow, this person says that, and wow, they have a pretty good living. They and you know, they still enjoy themselves. So I think as long as we're able to portray that image, we have a good chance of getting the young ones to be pretty successful in a lot of different occupations, to be honest.
Thank you for that. And Dr. Foy, we want to end with you. So any last words, and what charge would you give the young people in regards to pursuing a career in the healthcare field?
The first thing that stands out to me is I try to express my Blackness, my culture, and my smartness wherever I am. So yes, whether it's my nappy hair, nothing against straight hair, or whether it's my African accent that comes up every time I get upset. Every place I have worked, they say, oh shoot, she's about to go soprano. See, yeah, the accent is coming, it's coming. They know, you know, and I never try to apologize for who I am. I am proud white mother of two. I'm from Cameroon, from the Southwest Province. No, I'm not lost. That's where I'm from. I know where I'm from. I worked my way here. The second thing, nothing to do with medicine, but my way of starting up a conversation in whatever field whatever setting I have worked in has been a conversation about financial literacy. I don't care what part of Black America you are, whether it's from the country or from, you know, urban New York, or you're from someplace in Alabama, everybody would love $1 in their pocket. Yeah. At least more of the dollar after you pay everybody. So one thing that I've always done, when I worked I worked with the CVS Clinic for a while, and when I would do physical exams or just sports physicals or even just regular visits where people came in like just outpatient family medicine, I tried to start really young, you know, like that 9-year-old, 8-year-old, 10-year-old. You know, when I come in the room, if I know I'm going to see a kid or there's a kid in the room, I come in acting already all crazy. Like, they're looking at me like, you sure you're the, you know, I'll be singing, I'm snapping, and I try to, you know, talk to them in a way that they will understand and whatever. Like, so I try to stay as current as possible. And if you know me, that's really hard because I definitely am old school. That's how I feel. It's like I'm everybody's grandma or grandaunt, even though I'm young. And when I come in, I say to them, hey, what you want to be when you grow up? And I want to play ball. Oh, that's great. Now, I can imagine watching you on TV. You think you're good? Yes. Okay, so that's your plan A. What's your plan B? And then they're looking at me, you know, very few people have a plan B. They want to play ball, they're good. So they're like, I don't understand. I said, well, you know, all of us want to play ball, but there's only so many people that gonna make it to the NBA or, you know, college with all of that stuff. So What do you do if that doesn't work? Or, it could work, but imagine if you tore up your ACL, what you gonna do? Or you only gonna play for so long after that, what you gonna do? You don't wanna be, and I'm using that, I say, hey, you don't wanna be Tony Braxton filing bankruptcy so many times. Because if you could read a contract and really understand what's on the contract, Babyface won't take all your money. Sorry, baby, I really love you. But, or, I'll say, hey, can you imagine if Magic Johnson had HIV and didn't have a backup plan? He'll be suicidal. You've reached that height of glory and just to get dropped off. HIV was just a death sentence back then, just for the stigma. I said, so, hey, we got to come up with a backup plan. And I'm like, okay, so tell me a little bit about how you see your life. Yeah. They're looking at me still, they don't get it. I say, let me tell you what I thought. When I was a little girl, I thought I was going to be an ER doctor. I thought I was going to show up to my, a late 7 p.m. or 10 p.m. shift on a bike. Like I'll be riding like a Harley and just make a lot of noise. And nobody would think I was the doctor. Why? Well, because I just don't like people to predict me. And I would like, have a good house. I like white cabinets. When I spell out, this is my dream of how I thought I would be. So then they go, yeah, I would like that. I would like to be like this. I like that. They tell me, and I say, well, so how are we going to get it? We need to figure out a way to get it. Sports is great. You could sing, you could rap. But if it doesn't hit it, what do? You got to have a backup plan.
To piggyback on what Pauline just mentioned, something else that can really help our young ones that look like us to succeed. Honestly, like she said, to be around people that are smart. Also, the company you keep is very important. Like my brother he's a year younger than I am. He's a pharmacist. We have a friend of ours who's pretty much like a brother. He had moved into our house back in high school, and we were all really, really close together with some other friends. But when those guys had gone to college, we all held each other very accountable to a very high standard. Even this friend I'm talking about, he smart guy. He was doing I think business and economics. He was really smart, and he was getting all B's in these classes. And I remember I came home. This is now when I'm in early med school. I came home, and us three. It was one night, late at night. We had gone somewhere. We're in the car. It's me, my brother, and my friend. Maybe like 3 a.m. or something, and we're having a very, very fired up conversation about, my brother is very concerned that this friend of ours is super smart and like could easily be acing all these classes, but he's getting all B's because, he's focusing on girls a little bit too much. And like lighting him up and saying like, man, what are you doing? Like, you should be acing all these, like you're better than this. And not like, so I'm just trying to say, like, when you have those kind of people around you, it's you're gonna succeed. I mean, and there's been times where they might say things to me that I don't like, but it's for my own good, or I might say it to my brother, whatever. But we always held each other accountable, and till this day, that really, really helps. And the guy I'm mentioning, man, he went on to graduate really well. He has a great job. He's excelling in life. But to have, our friend, our parents mentioned this to us when we were younger. And maybe we didn't really peep it as much, when you're in like middle school, you're a teenager, whatever. Like the company you keep is very important. I had friends who were cool to kick it with, but like they're not gonna motivate me like that if I'm not doing that well in school. They don't care, So you need to have people who actually care about like your future and really care. Like, hold on, I think he can do better than what he's doing. Let me push him a little bit. So it's really important to have that. That's all I wanted to say. And then another thing would be, another way that I try to motivate a lot of people is like letting them know like the kind of like what Pauline said, the lifestyle they could live, and not to be bragging or anything, but I'll tell them like the amount of money I make and stuff, because sometimes the internet is very false with these things. So you see numbers that aren't correct, and you don't really get the accurate information. So I really let them know everything it is. Like, this is how you can be living. This is how comfortable you could be. These are the things you can afford, whatever. So when they see all that, they're like, wow, man, and you really think I could do it? And I'll be honest, like, yeah, I think you can, and then that kind of sparks them, gets them going. So those are really the two things I think, and again, just really the company that these young ones keep is very important. I always try to stress that to the young ones. So thank you.
Dr. Kabana, Dr. Foy, and Dr. Ndeli, I just want to thank you so much for joining Voices of Black Folk and like actually having a conversation that is very much needed. And you know, as we said in the beginning of this show, too often we don't see too many of us in positions like this. So I thank you all for doing what you're doing. I thank you all for being our frontline workers right now in such a pivotal time. And we'll definitely, as we move forward, have part 2 of this conversation, because I believe this is a conversation that definitely needs to continue. So thank you all so much for joining me for this conversation.